I actually have a question for you guys. Now that you mentioned, Chris Osgood, he was a Blue for a short amount of time in his career. Mostly remembered for his Red Wing days. But I guess, like, from a St. Louis fan's perspective, I mean, what type of goaltender do they see Chris Osgood as? Because one of the biggest arguments in Detroit is he a Hall of Famer or isn't he? So I'm curious of the perspective of somebody who got to see him as a non-Red Wing and his contributions to their team.
I would say that he is a serviceable goalie who will not lose you a ton of games, but I don't think he's going to. You guys saw a whole lot more of him than we did, but he's not the kind of guy that's going to win you a cup on his own. He's the kind of guy that's going to allow the team in front of him to get the job done, maybe not lose too many, and in a 7-game series.
I would say to an extent, his success is seen as a byproduct of who's in front of him, and his failures are kind of seen the same way.
Yeah, and there was actually a lot of talk, believe it or not, on St. Louis radio over the summer when he retired, and people asking that big question, is he a Hall of Fame goaltender? And the resounding answer in St. Louis was a giant no, because of what Jeff just said, that he was a product of his team in front of him. But I have to say, there was a couple times there, and I remember the late 90s and even the early 2000s where he did stand on his head in some of the playoff games. And, does that make him a Hall of Fame goaltender? Probably not, but, he's definitely one of the most, I think he's an underrated goaltender, and I think a lot of people don't give him the credit he deserves.
On the Let'sGoBlues.com forums, the day we acquired Osgood, someone took a snapshot of the front page of the discussion forum, and there must have been 7 or 8 threads that said, "No, oh my God, no!" It just wasn't something that the Blues fans were excited about right away.
It's funny that you guys say that, though, because if you look at how Osgood finished out his career, minus the last 2 seasons because of the injuries, but he was phenomenal in the playoffs in '08, and you guys said that he wasn't necessarily a guy who's going to win you a series, but let's be honest, without Chris Osgood in '08, they don't win the Cup. Dominic Hasek, at that point in his career wasn't doing the job. You had, even looking at guys that, were before him, you say he's a byproduct of what's in front of him, but, if it was so easy, how come Curtis Joseph couldn't do it? How come, these different guys, they stuck in their Manny legacy, just going throughout the years. I mean, the only other person who really could get in there and get the job done was Mike Vernon, who, with all his years in Calgary was phenomenal, so that, right guy at the right time. And then Dominic Hasek, who's, one of the elite goaltenders of, the NHL. So to say that he's simply a byproduct of what's in front of him, I think might be selling him a little bit short.
What's the phrase? Even a blind squirrel finds the nut every once in a while.
Right.
No, but I get what you're saying, and you mentioned Cujo, that not getting it done. I'm a big Cujo fan. He had some great years in St. Louis, and that year that he, if I remember correctly, he had some outstanding numbers in the playoffs, but the Wings just could not beat Jaguar. And against in Anaheim. Yeah, that was he had a great series. I remember, but they couldn't score on the. So.
Kippersoff too against Calgary. He shut us down, and Cujo was letting in about a goal and a half a game, and some Wings fans decided to blame Cujo for it. I'm like, well, he's only giving up a goal and a half against Calgary. I mean, you got to count your guys to put it in a few times.
We know all about in St. Louis about getting stymied by goalies and.
Kippersoff.
Yeah, Kippersoff and the last. I mean, in '01 when we went to the finals against the Avalanche, and Waugh just completely stood on his head, and that was just we've been there.
Plus, Roman Turek was not even in the crease, it seemed like, most of those goals. So, well, I think we can all agree on one thing, that Chris Osgood is going to go into the Hall of Fame as a famous New York Islander. I think we can all agree on that, right?
The glory years.
Yes.